Happy day, happy day. It's Dr. Christie with another parent webinar. I know you guys always have a lot of questions, and we like to help you with some answers, or at least we like to help you discover the truth. I often say that the more knowledge we have, that can be fantastic. It can clog up our brain, it can worry us, it can bog us down. But the more we take the knowledge that we gain and apply it into our lives, the better that we become, because we can read anything and do anything and hear about anything. But the more you understand it and the more you can apply it is really when you're going to benefit from it. Otherwise, it just literally clogs up your brain, and anybody can put a thought into your brain. You get to decide to keep it there. And sometimes that seems like a luxury as as an adult, because as a child, it feels like they told me that and it must be true, right? Especially if I'm a really literal child right now. But a lot of course, the topic of conversation across the country has been screens and kids in school and the amount of stress that they're under. That, this 2020, of course, for everybody has been really stressful, tons of unknowns, a lot of pressure on parents, feeling like we don't have a lot of freedom and choices in what we can do for our kids. And those of us that have chose to send our child to a public school that might be requiring online school and might be requiring masks has been really stressful. And not everybody has the luxury to say, I'm going to keep my child at home and homeschool. And we kind of had a split with my family. I've got one in a public high school who is on screens, and I've got two at home who's homeschooling. And there's battles, of course, with both of those situations. And you really just make the best of what you can and with what you have. So that's what we're going to do today. We are going to make the best of the situation that your child is under and the amount of screens that they're under. And some of the things I think we need to understand is that while we might face a problem and we might feel like this is a problem, let's make it a growth point instead of a problem. Let's make it a growing thing and start to learn from this and make the best situation out of our lives, because we know screens are going to be around for a long time. I remember my very first time I had to use a screen, I was a freshman in college and I had to type a paper, and I remember being like, oh, can I just double space handwrite it out? And now people would die to sit and do that, right? Like space, every line to write a paper out, everybody types. Everybody's on the computer. It starts really young. You see 2-year-olds typing in their mom's phone. They know the password. They know how to swipe up and get their face. They know how to play games. They probably know how to change settings. They probably set, screen limits on you. But one thing that's important to know is how often your child's on the screen, what they have access to when they're on the screen. Are there parental controls set on those screens? And I'm not only talking about the school device, I'm talking about the cell phone that they probably have, and especially with older kids and with younger kids, the school device that they have. What are screens really doing to the kids? What's going on in their brains? Why does it seem like children and adults get really addicted to a screen? So we're going to talk about that as well, and what it's really doing to our brains, and then also ways that we can combat that. Because some of the things that we're often talking about in our office is, yes, we're going to have stress in our lives. Yes, sometimes it's unknown, sometimes it's chosen, sometimes we choose stress and we wonder why we chose that stress, but we did it. And really what matters more than the stress is how your body adapts to that stress. How can you handle stress? And the more adaptable a human is, the more adaptable any species is, they are the ones that are going to survive, right? Those are the ones that thrive. And really, we know more than anything else in this world, we need to thrive. We need extra energy to be able to give to others, because right now the energy in the world is pretty low, it's pretty negative, and really the more positive you are and the more abundant you can be, the more you can give to others, and that's going to be reflective in anybody and everybody that you're in contact with. And mostly, you're probably in contact with your children, probably your coworkers if you're outside of your home, or your spouse, family, whoever you have direct contact with. Let's be abundant towards them, and then that they can be abundant towards others. So here's what we look at in stress. There are 3 forms of stress. There's physical, chemical, and emotional. And we cover these a lot. Screens encompass all 3. So this is fun. This is really fun in this department, right? This is really encouraging webinar so far. Great. Okay, I'm really stressing my child out with the screen. Excellent. We call them the 3 T's: thoughts, traumas, toxins, and I'd like to add a fourth called technology. Literally encompasses everything. And that stress can start to heighten our fight or flight response. So something we also are talking about in the office. You guys remember when we say that fight or flight response should be short-lived. It's an innate response to handle a stressful event and then be able to turn back off. And when your body is under stress, as I've said a million times, you flip your lid. Instead of your prefrontal cortex being in control, that is your higher brain center, it's creative, rational, organized thought, that can have a logical conversation with somebody, that can remain relaxed and calm and thoughtful and encouraging, flips. And the hindbrain takes over. And that is impulsive and reactive. About 1,400 chemicals are dumped throughout your body. It changes the physiology of every single cell to react. Every organ reacts. Every gland in your body reacts. And the blood gets shunted from your internal organs out to your limbs to fight or flee. Your brain wants glucose. It doesn't want a salad. It doesn't want vegetables. It doesn't want a halibut special on citrus leaves. Okay, it doesn't. It wants cheese and crackers. It wants sugar. It wants chocolate. It wants potato chips. It wants something quick and easy to keep going and hang out and get that fight or flight response. And that brain just needs to run on quick fuel. That's what it wants. Your heart rate increases. Your blood pressure goes up. The skin changes. Your internal organs get tense and tight. I mean, you can think of all of the things that happen when you feel stressed. Might be warm and flush. You aren't thinking well. Now, when your nervous system is under a constant state of stress, it gets wired that way. It gets triggered that way, and our brains can start to want a stressful fight or flight response as a dopamine hit. And yes, that can be screens. So as I was saying, there's physical, chemical, and emotional stress involved, stressors that trigger that fight or flight response. When you're under an emotional stress response, whether you are sitting there in that moment, in that argument, in that debate, in that classroom, trying to learn, wherever you are, whether you are in that moment or you are thinking about that moment, your body's going through the same physiology. Your brain doesn't know, am I there? Do I need to respond? Am I not? Am I still bottling up that fight or flight response? When do I need to respond to fight, flight, or flee? And it can be perpetuated. And your brain can now start to live off of those hits of dopamine that you're getting through the adrenaline, through that stress response, through the cortisol that's circulating in your body. You're sort of hanging on to belly fat over time, right? Our blood pressure is high. And in our kids, we're still making new neurological connections. Tons of them. Birth to 3, children make 1 million new neurological connections a second. In our 30s and 40s, we're making 1 million new neurological connections in a year. There is a ton of neurological activity that's going on inside those little brains. So if you got a little one on the screen, it can be a pretty big deal. Now, I'm going to talk to you about a couple more issues that's going on. So when we're talking about a screen and a gaming screen, that someone's like, my kid's so addicted to the screens. They have meltdowns when the screens are taken away. What's going on? Well, they're literally in that screen. They don't have a prefrontal cortex like we do. If you remember, males' prefrontal cortex fully developed they think about 25 or later in life. It takes some time, I mean, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, we don't know. And in women, it can be 18 to 22 before that's fully developed. So they're still taking in the world and figuring out how it works and in that prefrontal cortex. So when they're in a game, to them, that is real life. They can literally not tell the difference between I am here in this moment in this game and I am involved in this game. I am participating very much like we get caught up in a video or a movie that we're watching, maybe a television show, something where we can feel the emotions and get caught up in that rush of what's going on inside of that show. You get connected to the characters because your brain has that commutative response where you put yourself there. We're very empathetic beings. Now, we have a prefrontal cortex that should be able to pull us out to when the movie shuts off, to know like the movie's done, it's over, it's finished. I'm not in there, I'm not related to Rachel in Friends, whatever it is. She's not really my friend. We can pull back from that, and kids, they really can't, and they can start to develop a dependency on that. Not only the action that's going on when you see a screen, whether it's a video game or a movie, it is flashing at like 1,000 bits a second. And it's keeping up with the energy of the brain. I'm going to talk about this in a moment because our brains are our generators. It generates the energy and it has to be fueled. Now we're bringing in artificial energy and emotional response to these screens. That can be a really big deal. Now start to tie in social media and getting social acceptance and looking at having to watch videos out in school, forget about all the other problems that there can be, or just even trying to figure out a screen and be sitting in front of it. I'm going to talk about all of those components of it. There's a lot of stress there. And I'm not even going to get into the social media and social acceptance and how, kids are starting to lose that interaction socially because now they're caught up in the screen and how cartoon characters are acting instead of real interactions with real people, with real eye contact, with body language, seeing their full face, right? We aren't seeing full faces anymore and making those social connections. Remember those 1 million new neurological connections a second that are occurring in their brain? They aren't getting those social cues. So they aren't bonding with social cues. They aren't picking that up. They aren't having that social interaction. There's a lot more in our teens on the phones that they're texting instead of having, facial recognition, eye contact with somebody, seeing their body language. It's a lot different when it's typed up words, with maybe a couple emojis, which is probably why they added them, knowing that there's emotion with text. There's emotion with the email. It's hard to read it. You're going to read it in how you interpret the world, not how they interpret the world. So they can be very misinterpreted, whether it's a Facebook comment or a text message or an email from somebody. It can trigger fight or flight, even though they didn't mean to, especially if they don't include an emoji, especially if you don't know their personality. There's a lot happening there that's going to continue to perpetuate that fight or flight response. Now, let's push all of that emotional response aside. I told you that there's physical, chemical, and emotional trauma with a screen. The physical trauma can be sitting at a screen in atrocious postures. Number one, I've watched my son in his tiny little school device. I told him he looks like Elf because he's hunched over like this. We have to get something to prop it up. I wish you could see my laptop. Make sure that their eyes can be eye level with this laptop. This is even a little bit low for me, and I know you can't see where you're at. Unattach the keyboard, get them a mouse. Make sure that they're able to sit up well, that they have lumbar support, that they can do their wiggle room. And I know this seems over the top, but our bodies are designed to move. And honestly, bodies that don't move are the hardest to heal. My gamers are the hardest to heal. My accountants that sit at a desk all day, my engineers, people that are constantly in front of a screen, it is proven over and over again, they are the hardest ones to heal. They take extra time. They aren't feeding their brain. And when I told you the brain is the generator, it's looking for energy. It's easy to suck in energy while I'm sitting here taking in all that emotion, something that needs to keep up with the energy that's there. And it's different to have a physical outlet for it. And your brain runs on electrical impulses. Those electrical impulses, 60% of what it depends on is coming from the spine. Over half, 33%, coming from the upper cervical spine, right near the brainstem, right where we do balance and proprioception. There's a ton of information. When you listen to any other of my webinars and what we talk about with how important that cerebellum and vestibular tracts and all the things that are connecting the brain, it's a pretty big deal. And it's a really big deal when we're just sitting stagnant at a desk, atrocious posture, staring at a screen, doing whatever we have to do, looking down like this, atrocious neck posture to text. it is traumatic on our bodies. You need to find some sort of physical activity for yourself or your child to combat the emotional stress and the physical stress that's occurring from sitting still. So some sort of activity. And if you've got a kid and you're at home, I know that they don't have to be logged in all the time. They need wiggle breaks in between. They need to do something, whether they take a couple laps around the house, do some push-ups, do some jumping jacks, do some plank work. I mean, I don't care what they do, but they've got to do something to combat that stress, because no movement is traumatic to the brain. It doesn't feed the brain. That's when it wants input from other areas, and that's when it's going to want video games, it's going to want music, it's going to want social media, it's going to want gaming, something else to take in and suck up and be able to keep up with that energy of the brain. Especially if you have a bouncy kid, I'm going to suggest some sort of standing station, sitting on a ball station, whatever you can do to get your kid to be able to move and be very dynamic. Give them some Play-Doh, give them something, rubber, those elastic bands that you can put on a leg of a chair, let them kick on that. They've got to be able to wiggle and move. Those are great things to be able to do. And the third one, chemical trauma. And I know not a lot of people are going to necessarily agree with me, but when you take a look at the amount of energy coming from LED lights, from screens, it is a chemical stress to our body. It's an excitatory toxin to our body. It has energy. So when you're looking at a scale of lights, and UV lights being the most energetic, we know how much UV lights, UV rays can change and excite cells, right? They can burn our skin, it can kill things. You're like, use UV, it'll be able to, kill the surface of 99% of germs. We know, because those rays are very energetic and they're very short waves. They move very quickly. Now, right above ultrasound rays and light is blue light, and that's what's emitted in a screen on an LED light from any device. So a tablet, a laptop, a computer screen, a television screen, an iPhone screen, any device is emitting blue light. So are your LED lights in your home. So, which of course we suggest not having them. We suggest the number one thing you can do is turn off your blue light and put it on your night vision on all of your devices, on your television, on your laptops, on your computers, on your phones, anywhere and everywhere. Please turn that blue light off. And then right above it is the rest of the colors of the rainbow. They're very longer wavelengths. They're not as high energy, and your brain isn't getting excited from those. It's not, and nor is your corneas and your retinas. Like, you've got to think that you're staring into near UV light for hours on end, and it can be very traumatic up to the eyes as well. So really important to do that. If you don't know how to do it, Google it, or go into your settings of your computer, turn on the nighttime vision, and make it during the day when you're on your computer, or just turn it on permanently, whatever you have to do. It's a pretty big deal, and you can choose a scale of it, and it might be a little bit difficult to get used to. If you're looking at photos, you might need to switch it back off, but it's a pretty big deal. So I hope that was helpful. I didn't think it would take this long to explain all this to you. I've been talking fast, and it's already been 18 minutes, but it's going to be really important that we can combat all those things. It's going to be really important that we choose the amount of time that they can be there. If they can take wiggle breaks in between, do it. If they can run in between, do it. The less time they can spend, if they can print off the pages on their computer, I know that seems like a waste and you're killing a tree, but do it. It's going to be it's literally going to really matter. I know my own child, who's on this tiny screen, has been really stressed. He's on the home device, as often as he can be, trying to get used to all of the, buttons and how to download things and find PDFs and actually save them in a place and open them, and, and a new location, so you're not changing the original and submitting things blank. There's a lot of problems that are going on with that, and I know that they're trying to carry now those devices into the school to be on them even more regularly at their desks and in their home classrooms. So be watching for that. If you have a child who is completely addicted to screens, or just addicted to screens out in general, that you're having a hard time with, or you're having a hard time parenting with, you're having a hard time setting boundaries with, it's outside of your family's values, you need some additional help, we've got those sorts of resources. Reach out to us. We've got parenting coaches, we've got naturopaths, and most importantly, in our office, we help calm that fight or flight response. I know you guys have probably seen my videos 100 times. We know chiropractic adjustments help put that lid on, help that prefrontal cortex be able to communicate with the rest of the body, because we know the body is designed to heal. It's designed to self-regulate. It's designed to be healthy. It's not designed to be running under stress over time. It should be short-lived. We all know people in their 30s and 40s that are completely exhausted, depressed, anxious, stressed out, burnt out, because they've been in fight or flight for so long, because they might have chosen or not chosen the amount of stress that are in their lives. But put limits on your stress. Choose your stress wisely. Only allow certain amounts into your life. You probably learned a little bit more about screens and stress today than you needed to know, but I hope you can apply this knowledge and get a more abundant life with that. Call our office, get an appointment, get a consultation with a doctor, talk to us about chiropractic care, because not everybody understands and not everybody knows about chiropractic care. They don't know. They thought it was neck pain, back pain, and headaches. And yes, people that might be on a screen have that, but really we have a nervous system that needs calmed, that needs that fight or flight response shut down, that needs a prefrontal cortex and a nice lid that's on there sealed, so we don't live here in that fight or flight response, impulsive and reactive, missing out on life, having false energy reaching our brain, getting addicted to screens, getting addicted to alcohol, to drugs, to caffeine. There's a lot of things that people can get hooked on because they're trying to calm that fight or flight response. So this is a natural way to do it. Not choosing stress is an additional way to do it. Those 3 T's, physical, chemical, and emotional stress. Watch our other videos. We talk about those a lot. And please ask the doctors any questions. We've got another roundtable coming up. We always do. Go to our private community page if you're already a patient, and keep getting educated. We love and appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon.